Jason Cole had faced drug lords, arms dealers, and cybercriminals, but he never expected his greatest adversary to be Karen Whitmore, the arrogant HOA president who had just stolen his Batmobile. Jason Cole had been waiting months for his custom Batmobile Replica to arrive, a dream he had finally brought to life. Every detail had been meticulously crafted to resemble the iconic Tim Burton-era Batmobile, from the jet-black exterior to the turbine engine that roared like a beast. It wasn't just a car. It was a childhood fantasy turned into reality. The delivery had been smooth, and the moment he parked it inside his garage, he stood back and admired it like a masterpiece. The sleek design, the futuristic curves, and the sheer presence of it made him feel invincible. He had taken it out for a few nighttime drives, the engine's low growl turning heads wherever he went. But the euphoria was short-lived. Jason had been away for a weekend training session with Homeland Security, nothing out of the ordinary. When he returned Sunday evening, he pressed the garage remote from his driveway. The door lifted, revealing nothing. The garage was empty. For a few seconds, his mind refused to process it. He blinked, as if his eyes were playing tricks on him. The custom-built platform where the Batmobile had sat was bare, not even a tire mark left behind. His heart pounded in his chest as he stepped forward, scanning the walls, the floor, anything. That could explain what had happened. His first instinct was to check the security cameras. He rushed inside and pulled up the feed on his laptop. Black screen. Every camera had gone offline 2 days ago. Someone had cut the power to them. Whoever had done this knew exactly what they were doing. Jason clenched his jaw, his mind switching into investigative mode. The garage had no signs of forced entry. The locks weren't broken, and the keypad system hadn't been tampered with. That meant whoever stole the car either had a copy of the key or had access to the override codes. This wasn't some random carjacker off the street. This was an inside job. His fingers drummed against the table as he thought. His neighbors? No, none of them had the skills or the reason. A professional thief? Unlikely, considering the neighborhood. Had a gated entrance and private security. That left only one suspect. Karen Whitmore. The thought made his blood boil. Karen, the ever-infuriating HOA president, had been making his life hell ever since he moved in. She had a pathological need to control everything in the neighborhood, from the color of people's mailboxes to the type of flowers they could plant. And she had hated his Batmobile. "The car is an eyesore," she had told him weeks ago, her arms crossed, expression smug. "This is a respectable community, not some comic book convention." Jason had ignored her, but she had made it clear she wouldn't let it go. Could she have really gone this far? His fists clenched. He wasn't just a car enthusiast, he was a federal agent. And Karen had just made the biggest mistake of her life. Jason knew better than to act impulsively. If Karen Whitmore had really orchestrated the theft of his Batmobile, he needed proof. Storming over to her house and accusing her outright would only make her more careful. No, this required patience, precision. The next morning, he attended the HOA meeting, knowing Karen would be there, parading her self-importance as usual. The community center was filled with homeowners, most of them either indifferent or too scared to challenge her authority. Jason took a seat near the back, arms crossed, eyes studying every expression on her face. Karen, dressed in her usual pastel-colored blazer, stood at the front, flipping through papers. Her voice carried its usual condescending tone as she addressed. The group. "We need to discuss the importance of maintaining our community's standards," she announced. "Some residents still refuse to follow the guidelines we've set in place, and that's why we've taken certain measures." Jason's jaw tightened. "Certain measures?" Karen continued, barely masking the smugness in her voice. "Vehicles that do not align with the aesthetic integrity of our neighborhood have been, shall we say, handled." She gave a tight smile, her eyes sweeping across the room. "Permanently." Jason leaned forward slightly, watching for any tells. Did she know he was on to her? Or was she just enjoying her little power trip? A man in the front row, an older resident, hesitated before raising his hand. "Handled how?" he asked. Karen clasped her hands together. "Depends. Sometimes they're impounded. Sometimes they're donated. And in rare cases, they are scrapped." Jason felt his pulse quicken. She had no idea what she had done. He kept his voice calm. "What if the owner never agreed to it?" Karen turned toward him, her eyes narrowing just a little. "Then they should have followed the rules." The meeting continued, but Jason was no longer listening. His mind was already working through the possibilities. If Karen had arranged for his car to be removed, there were only a few ways she could have done it. A city tow truck? No, he had checked the records. Private towing service? More likely, but he needed to find out which one. After the meeting, he loitered near the exit, pretending to check his phone. Karen walked past, barely acknowledging him, but Jason caught a glimpse of something. Her keychain. Hanging alongside her house keys was a key fob for Thompson's private towing. Jason waited until she left, then pulled out his own phone, quickly searching for the company. The moment he saw their website, he knew he was onto something. Thompson's wasn't just a towing service. It specialized in discreet vehicle removals for private communities. HOA approved. No questions asked. He dialed the number and kept his voice casual when a man answered. "Hey, I was wondering if you guys did a job in my neighborhood recently. A black custom car, probably moved in the last couple of days." The silence on the other end was just a little too long. Then a clipped response. "Sorry, we don't give out client information." Jason smirked. That was all the confirmation he needed. Now he just had to find out where his car was, and Karen had no idea she had just declared war on the wrong person. Jason wasn't the type to wait around for answers to come to him. If Karen had used Thompson's private towing, then there was a paper trail. He just had to find it. That night, he drove past the company's lot, a fenced-off area on the outskirts of town where repossessed and towed vehicles sat in limbo. But his Batmobile wasn't there. That meant one thing. Karen had arranged something private. If she had stolen his car for herself, it had to be nearby. She wasn't the type to go far, too afraid to lose control over her perfect little kingdom. And that's what made him suspect her own property. He parked a block away from her house and approached on foot, keeping to the shadows. It was late, well past midnight. But in neighborhoods like this, people were either asleep or too nosy for their own good. He avoided streetlights, staying out of view from any security cameras. Karen's house was pristine, like a magazine cover. Perfectly trimmed hedges, a color-coordinated front door, not a single thing out of place. But Jason wasn't interested in her house. He was interested in what was behind it. Circling around the side, he reached the backyard fence. It was tall, but not impossible to climb. He tested the wooden panels, finding the weakest point, then hoisted himself up and over, landing softly in the grass. That's when he saw it. A massive tarp-covered shape sat behind the house, near the detached garage. Even in the dim light, Jason could make out the contours, the long hood, the curved bat fins at the back. His heart pounded in his chest. Karen had his Batmobile in her backyard. Jason pulled out his phone and snapped a few pictures, making sure to get every angle. This was enough evidence to confront her, maybe even get the authorities involved. But, just as he was about to slip back over the fence, a noise made him freeze. A door creaked open. He ducked behind the tarp as footsteps approached. A flashlight beam cut through the darkness, sweeping across the yard. Jason held his breath. Then a voice. "Looking for something?" Jason turned, coming face to face with Karen herself. She stood in her silk robe, one hand on her hip, the other, holding a glass of wine like she had been expecting him. Her smirk made his skin crawl. "You really should be more careful sneaking around people's homes," she said. Jason didn't flinch. "Where's my car, Karen?" She took a slow sip of wine. "Your car? That's funny, because from what I understand it was an unapproved vehicle in our neighborhood, and the HOA had every right to have it removed." Jason clenched his fists. "Where is it?" Karen tilted her head. "Let's just say it's about to have a new owner." Jason's stomach twisted. She wasn't keeping the car, she was selling it. And if she had already set up the deal, he didn't have much time to stop her. Jason's mind raced. Karen wasn't just a petty control freak. She was running a scam, stealing cars under the guise of HOA enforcement and selling them off like they were her own. And now, she had his Batmobile on the chopping block. He kept his voice level. "Who's buying it?" Karen swirled the wine in her glass, looking amused. "Now, why would I tell you that?" Jason took a slow step forward. "Because I'm done playing games, Karen. That car isn't just a collector's piece. It belongs to a federal agent." For the first time, her smirk faltered. It was quick, just a flicker of uncertainty. But Jason caught it. She recovered fast, tilting her head. "Is that supposed to scare me?" Jason shrugged. "Depends. Do you want to go to prison for grand theft auto and conspiracy? Because I've got all the evidence I need." Karen's jaw tightened, but before she could respond, another voice cut through the night. "Boss, we got a problem." Jason turned just in time to see a man stepping out of Karen's garage, wiping his hands on a grease-stained rag. He was built like a tank, wearing a mechanic's jumpsuit with Thompson's private towing embroidered on the chest. His sharp eyes locked onto Jason. Karen exhaled, annoyed. "I told you to keep quiet." The mechanic ignored her, focusing on Jason. "Who's this?" Karen's voice was clipped. "Nobody you need to worry about." The man frowned. "That so?" Then, faster than Jason expected, he pulled a gun. Instinct took over. Jason lunged forward, grabbing the mechanic's wrist before he could aim. The gun fired, a deafening blast, but the shot went wide, hitting a garden statue. Jason twisted the man's wrist, forcing him to drop the weapon, then landed a brutal elbow strike to his jaw. The mechanic staggered back, dazed. Karen screamed, dropping her wine glass, but Jason barely noticed. He kicked the gun away and grabbed the mechanic by the collar. "Where's my car being sold?" The man groaned, trying to shove him off. "Screw you!" Jason slammed him against the garage door. "Try again!" The mechanic spat blood. "Midnight! Warehouse on 9th! Buyers already on the way!" Jason let go, letting the man collapse onto the ground. He turned to Karen, who was now backing away, her usual confidence shattered. "You're done." Jason said coldly. "When I come back, it'll be with backup." Karen's mouth opened, then closed. She looked like she wanted to protest, but for the first time, she had nothing to say. Jason didn't waste another second. He pulled out his phone, sending a message to his partner at Homeland Security. "Big lead, car theft ring, warehouse on, 9th. Be there in 30 minutes. He was done playing along. If they moved fast, he'd get his Batmobile back before it disappeared forever. Jason arrived at the warehouse on 9th Street with his gun holstered but ready. His Homeland Security team was already en route, but he couldn't afford to wait. If the buyer took possession of his Batmobile before backup arrived, it would be gone forever, possibly shipped overseas within hours. The building was an old industrial structure, its exterior rusted and worn. A single light flickered above the large garage doors, casting eerie shadows on the pavement. Jason moved quietly, staying low, using the darkness as cover. From the side entrance, he could hear muffled voices inside. He slipped in through a service door, staying hidden behind stacks of old crates. The scene before him confirmed everything. The Batmobile was parked in the center of the warehouse, its sleek black frame gleaming under the overhead lights. Several men stood around it, one of them inspecting it closely while another held a clipboard. Karen was there too, pacing nervously as she spoke to a well-dressed man in a gray suit. "The buyer. You didn't tell me this car belonged to a federal agent," the man said in a thick Eastern European accent, his voice laced with suspicion. Karen forced a smile, but Jason could see the panic behind her eyes. "It doesn't matter. It's here. It's yours." The man shook his head. "No, I don't buy heat. If law enforcement is involved, this is worthless to me." Karen's smile dropped. "I can handle it." The man sighed. "I don't think you understand. If this is a setup, I will make sure you disappear." He turned to one of his men, who nodded and reached for something inside his jacket. Jason knew that look. Karen was about to be executed. She must have realized it too, because her face went pale. "Wait, just give me a chance to fix this." Jason had seen enough. He stepped out from behind the crates, gun drawn. "Drop it now!" The buyer's men reacted instantly, reaching for their weapons, but Jason was faster. He fired 2 quick shots, hitting the ground near their feet. "Next one's go in your chest." Karen nearly collapsed in relief, while the buyer lifted his hands slightly, signaling his men to stop. "And who might you be?" the man asked, his calm demeanor returning. Jason took a step forward. "The rightful owner of that car. And the federal agent you should have never messed with." Karen turned to Jason, eyes wide with desperation. "Jason, listen, "Shut up," Jason snapped. "You're done." Sirens wailed in the distance. The buyer cursed in his native language, barking orders at his men. They made a run for the back exit, but Jason didn't stop them. He wasn't here for them. He was here for his car. Within minutes, the warehouse was surrounded. Karen was cuffed and arrested on the spot, along with the tow company accomplices. The Batmobile was secured. As Jason slid into the driver's seat, he allowed himself a smirk. Karen had tried to steal from him. Now she had lost everything.